In a grossly small cage, curled up in a ball, lay a lizard covered in dark, peculiarly adorned scales. When the beaked one struck the cage with his rod, the reptile thrashed about, running its scales across the bars. It stretched its long neck and emitted a piercing hiss, demonstrating sharp, white, conical teeth that contrasted starkly with the nearly black scales around its maw. Not the most dignified description of a dragon, is it? Every aspiring hero, knight and treasure hunter fantasizes about slaying a dragon. Few feats are more romantic, and those gallant enough to thrust their swords through the lithesome neck of a great reptilian beast are immortalized in folklore. When we think of St. George the Dragon Slayer, we typically imagine a steel-plated cavalier astride a majestic destrier, lance in hand. After wounding the dragon with his lance, he beheaded it, saving his damsel, the king's daughter, from being devoured by the venom-spewing monster. On the very same spot that the dragon died, where the creature's blood had cascaded over the soil, the king built a church to the Blessed Virgin Mary and St. George, and a spring flowed from the church's altar with sacred water that cured all disease. Tales of chivalry such as these bring hope to the common ilk, inspire capable young men, and create a culture of bravery and triumph over adversity. But in typical Witcher universe fashion, romantic notions are often rotten to the core, and where one might seek glory, only despair can be found. That is, after all, why we have witchers in the first place. Slaying monsters is their bread and butter, yet no one applauds their achievements. Dragons and all of their copious cousins are a perfect example of this. The hyponym for the many dragon-like creatures on the continent is Draconids. This category refers to all large reptiles, generally possessing 4 limbs and 2 wings. There are dragons of various colours, basilisks, cockatrices, forktails, slizzards, wyverns, and they all have their own unique features. Some scholars would class each of these, with the exception of dragons, as ornithosaurs, but both classifications seem to be accepted and vary from scholar to scholar. One common trait among every type of draconid is their aptitude for killing humans who encroach on their territory. Legendary heroes, knights in shining armor, even village idiots. It makes little difference to a draconid, for when threatened, they will pulverize steel and flesh and bone with equal ease. So how about it? Do you still fancy slaying a dragon? Hey guys, it's Drew here and welcome back to Fudge Muppet. It's been quite a while since the last Witcher video on the channel, and I'm excited to be back. I've got plenty of Witcher videos in the works, and first on the agenda is the complete guide to all of the realm's draconids. If you spent some time on the Witcher's path, sleeping beneath the stars, taking those scarce contracts wherever you can, you'll know just how deadly these creatures are to kill. Few trophies draw open-mouthed stares from the masses like a wyvern with rows of razor-sharp fangs, or a forktail with its scythe-like horns. But aside from learning about their individual temperaments and physical variations, we're going to answer the question, why are mortals so fond of becoming a draconid's next meal? And is there any truth to the myths and folktales surrounding the dragons and their kind? So let's get right to it. Everybody knows what a basilisk is, right? Once you learn their secret, slaying one is simple. If the fairy tales are to be believed, the only certain way to kill a basilisk is by holding a mirror in front of its eyes to divert its deadly gaze. Were you to meet a basilisk's gaze, you would be instantly turned to stone. But this is the first of many instances where you shouldn't pay attention to the fairy tales. Just ask Sir Roderick, who spends most of his time in the Vizima cemetery. His tombstone reads, "In memory of the noble knight Roderick, slain during a valiant struggle against a basilisk. Let's hope the beast choked on his bones." So before you fight a basilisk, consult a witcher, and they'll reply that it is far better to smash the mirror on the creature's head. However, if you're under the impression that you can now easily dispatch of a basilisk because you can safely stare it down, I'd reconsider, because they're still equipped with projectile-spewing acid glands, impossibly sharp and venomous teeth and talons, and wings powerful enough to blow a grown man off his feet. An interesting thing about basilisks is, unlike most draconids, they prefer dark, enclosed spaces. They opt to make their nests in cellars, caves and sewers, and they wait patiently for prey to come to them instead of hunting it. The next of the draconids sports a rather unique breeding method. Cockatrices are born of eggs laid by roosters consorting with other roosters. The egg must be incubated for 44 days by a toad, which is then devoured by the little beast as soon as it hatches. I think this bestiary entry should be taken with a grain of salt though, because just like the basilisk, superstitious types like to claim that cockatrices also kill with a gaze, and once again, it's a load of guff. Of course, another reason to doubt this claim is that roosters are male and can't lay eggs. But hey, I guess stranger things have happened. We are talking about a creature that combines the majesty of a dragon with the mockery of a chicken. You'd think that being part poultry would make cockatrices susceptible to fire. I'm astounded that no one has thought to try frying cockatrice as a delicacy. Perhaps they have somewhere down south in Nilfgaard. But grape-shot shrapnel and ard blasts are much more reliable than fire. Chickens may be synonymous with cowardice, but cockatrices are not afraid of a fight, and prove ferocious even when faced with the most experienced of witches. In battle, cockatrices aim to overwhelm their foes, flailing frantically with wings, claws, and tail. Don't underestimate their cockerel heads, as even though they don't have large fang-filled jaws, their beaks peck with impeccable precision, targeting exposed flesh and vital organs. Few truly know what a dragon looks like. For those who have seen one up close rarely have a chance to share their impressions. That is why people are forever mistaking other monsters for dragons. This was the case in Fyresdal, where the so-called dragon wreaking havoc turned out to be a forktail. When Vagan, the village elder, was asked about the beast, he cried, "It's got scales, wings, claws. A dragon's a dragon. No point gabbing, just go kill it." If you want to know how the creatures of the continent are perceived, you need only ask the common folk. It's easy to see why all Draconids are confused for dragons. But in reality, forktails are unique beasts. They owe their quaint name to the long sharp growths at the tip of their tails. A blow from this weapon can slice an oaken shield in two, along with the arm that was carrying it. Thus, though its name conjures images of cutlery, fighting a forktail is nothing like a dinner party, and ends in death rather than dessert. The Crinfrid Reavers, a legendary band of mercenaries specializing in the slaying of Draconids, wiped out all of the Draco lizards and forktails in the entirety of Redania. And when one member, Zeta, was asked about our next Draconid, even he thought twice about slaying one. He said, "Some peasants once offered me a king's ransom to slay a lizard, a damned hefty purse, chock full of gold. But I turned 'em down. Coin's no good if you're dead. And a slizzard, that's no fucking forktail." So if the scythe head and cleaver tail of a forktail wasn't enough to make you piss your britches, try tackling a slizzard. Slizzards, or Draco lizards as they're known in some regions, are often mistaken for wyverns and forktails, and dragons in general, but they are nothing like their draconid cousins. In fact, slizzard heads are about as far from forktail heads as you can get. They're eerily round and smooth, like distant relatives of Gaunter O'Dim. Thankfully, they lack his cunning. Slizzards have come up with a rather impressive strategy for efficiently preparing perfectly cooked, delicious meals. They can eviscerate and devour an untrained human in seconds, but they don't really have a taste for sashimi, so they utilize their fire-breathing abilities to bake the victim to a crisp simultaneously. It's hard to say for certain what kills you, the talons and teeth or the flames. But does it really matter? A slizzard's victim dies in a moment of excruciating agony regardless. If you think you can evade the claw swipes and the raining balls of fire, don't make the mistake of attacking it from the rear. A slizzard's tail is covered with venomous spikes. If a creator god truly exists in the Witcher universe, you have to wonder what kind of foul mood it had been in when it decided to conjure up Draco lizards. Wyverns are unlucky to be frequently mistaken for dragons. Seeing a reptile approaching a flock of sheep, peasants panic. They expect it to breathe fire, massacre everyone, and abduct the local virgins. While it is true that wyverns hunt sheep, they neither breathe fire nor lay waste to whole villages, and they are completely indifferent to virgins. Yes, wyverns may be indifferent to us gamers, but I wouldn't start sighing with relief at the sight of a wyvern. Wyverns, much like basilisks and slizzards, boast tails so poisonous that one touch of its stinger will bring a premature end to whatever heroic deeds you had devised. On top of this, their slobbering jaws bristle with impossibly sharp teeth. Wyverns seem to be entirely composed of all the reptilian features humans find terrifying. A long serpentine neck and twisting tail, brightly coloured scales warning prospective predators of their noxious properties, a curved spine covered in spikes. Everything about them is unsettling. Wyverns are unsavoury bastards, but royal wyverns are worse, larger and somehow even more aggressive. The key reason royal wyverns receive their own classification is because they're intelligent. Albina Totelkamp, lecturer of natural sciences at Aretusa, weighs in with this erudite explanation of the beasts. Most dangerous of all are the royal wyverns, or as they're called in some circles, the royal pains in the arse. And the bestiary entry on royal wyverns provides a good example of their capacity for employing intelligent tactics. Human hunters learn about their prey. They know what forest paths deer are like to trod, what muck boars are like to wallow in, and what time of day a hare will emerge from its burrow. Knowing is half the battle. Royal wyverns typically like to fly high in the sky to locate their prey from afar. But when one royal wyvern in Velen learned that doing this would attract the unwanted attention of crossbow-wielding townsfolk, it instead opted to lurk in thickets along the roadside, waiting patiently for military transports. This royal wyvern gorged itself on beer and salted pork, and became arguably the most dangerous drunkard to wander the northern kingdoms. Thankfully, royal wyverns, like regular wyverns, do not breathe fire. Otherwise, the beer-induced belches of this beast would be extremely deadly. But finally, we come to the most famous of the Draconids. The Draconid every other winged beast seems to be mistaken for, and they are considerably more complex than their poisonous, prickly, and pugnacious cousins. I don't kill dragons, in spite of the fact they no doubt represent chaos, Geralt said. Why is that? Free Jackdaws licked his fingers. But that's outrageous. Surely of all monsters, the dragon is the most dangerous, vicious and cruel, most terrible of all the reptiles. It attacks humans, spits fire and even steals virgins. Haven't you heard enough stories about that? Is it possible that you, Witcher, do not have a few dragon slayings in your list of accomplishments? I do not hunt dragons, Geralt replied dryly. Giant centipedes, yes. Draco lizards, Dermopterans, but not real dragons. Greens, blacks or reds. Make no mistake about it. It's ironic that I chose to make Draconids in general the topic of this video, as dragons have long had their reputations tarnished by the many creatures I've spoken about so far. Lumping them together in a video seems wrong, but it's also fitting, as misrepresenting dragons is what humans in the Witcher world love to do. You see, with the exception of distant lands like Zerrikania where dragons are venerated, dragons are widely considered to be the single greatest enemy of mankind. Those who peddle this narrative will be quick to dispel any rumours that man's greatest enemy also coincidentally happens to love hoarding golden gems. So when bands of brave men set off on dragon hunts, they can pretend it is in the interest of protecting the helpless, as opposed to simple greed. If you can point me to a single dragon slayer who leaves the beast's treasure trove untouched, I'd pay you his weight in gold. Now there are two kinds of dragons, and various subtypes in each category. There are true dragons and mythical dragons. True dragons include green, red, black and white dragons, and for the most part, the distinction lies in their environments, as well as obviously the colour of their scales. Green dragons are the most common kind of dragon and dwell in forests. They are the smallest dragons, though still broader than a horse. They breathe toxic chlorine gas. Red dragons prefer to make their nests in caves high up in the mountains, and are known to grow as large as 15 meters in length. They breathe fire hot enough to melt steel. The most famous of the red dragons was an albino named Okvist. This huge pale beast lived on Quartz Mountain, and here it is said he hoarded an inconceivably large amount of treasure. Okvist supposedly lived for 1 million years, and in this time he collected sapphires of previously unknown colours, and diamonds as large as cherries. He kept this hoard in the ruins deep beneath the mountain. Okvist was nicknamed the Destroyer, which seems odd considering he was known for being good-hearted, fond of conversation, and quick to gift treasures from his hoard to friends and visitors. Despite this, the dragon-hunting dwarf named Yarpen Zigrin and his band of dwarven warriors were hailed as heroes when they slew the ancient creature. Little is known of white dragons, other than the fact they are incredibly rare, and found far in the north. When a white dragon breathes, it releases a torrent of frost so cold that it freezes everything it touches. Black dragons are the largest of the true dragons, and inhabit swamps and wetlands. They spit corrosive acid that thwarts the efforts of the most established armourers. Of the mythical dragons, scarce little is known. We have fragments of stories and the names of 5 different species, but if you'd like to know more than their names, you'd need to travel back thousands of years. There are brown dragons, known only to the dwarves of Mahakam. There are sea serpents, though only according to a handful of seafaring witnesses. There are silver dragons, but the closest you'll come to seeing one of these is on the doublet of the Nilfgaardian commander, Declan Melchlad. Geralt once witnessed the mounted head of the next kind of mythical dragon. When having dinner with the beast Nivellen, he spied the head of a rock dragon on the wall, though Geralt speculated it may have been the very last of its kind. Finally, we have the golden dragon, believed by most to be a myth. It's hard to fault the skeptics. A golden dragon sounds like exactly the kind of preposterous beast a human would conjure up. They can breathe hot steam and fire, and are said to reach 20 meters in length. Some even claim they can shapeshift into the form of a human. The land of Zerrikania actually takes its name from a golden dragon named Zerrikantament, who burned down all the forests around the queendom, leaving only desert. One other golden dragon has been known to exist, and his name is Tretton Mirth. In the interest of not repeating his name too many times, I'm going to refer to Tretton Mirth as Borch. This is because Borch was fond of making friends with all manner of creatures. This golden dragon was a master of polymorphism, and could therefore become any creature he wanted. One of these forms was the human named Borch Free Jackdaws. In dragon form, Borch had a child with a green dragon, named Murgtabrak. This daughter was Sasantesis, a green dragon like her mother, only she inherited her father's ability to become human. Using the name Saskia, this dragon played a crucial role in the Battle of Vergen. Geralt met all three of these dragons. The parents were embroiled in a famous dragon hunt in the kingdom of Caingorn, and it is through this story that we see parallels to the legend of St. George and the dragon. However, for every parallel we see the difference between the romanticised folklore and the grim reality of the Witcher world. Much like the dragon in St. George's golden legend, the green dragon of Caingorn had a taste for mutton. It swooped down without a warning on a herd of sheep. The shepherds ran away and it killed a dozen animals and ate 4 of them before taking flight. The villagers were not interested in making offerings to this beast, and devised a plan to kill it. They killed a sheep, then stuffed it full of hellebore, belladonna, hemlock, sulphur, and shoemaker's pitch, and by some stroke of luck the dragon wolfed it down. The dragon survived, but not without a severe case of indigestion. It crashed with a roar every cubit and a half, then took off again. It then retreated to the caves up in Big Kestrel Mountain, where it undoubtedly lived with its treasure hoard. The rumours of a weakened dragon struggling to guard a centuries-old stockpile of riches quickly attracted the attention of every valiant soldier, noble knight, and megalomaniacal king in the vicinity. The townsfolk responsible for the poisoned sheep believed they were entitled to the gold. Nidamir, the king of the region, believed it was his. As for the droves of knights and dragon hunters, well, they can simply cut their way to the treasure. Everyone was so desperate to see the beast slain, yet no one had stopped to consider the fact that this wounded dragon posed no further threat to their community. This wasn't about ridding the land of humanity's greatest enemy. This was about fame, glory, and gold. Gold and gems and precious metals. St. George's dragon was a looming danger, consuming every sacrifice without any sign of relent. But why consider the context when you can simply cry dragon? After many heated quarrels regarding who would claim what portion of the treasure, they confronted the incapacitated dragon. Only Tretton Mirth, the glorious golden dragon, stood between them. There was in this creature an ineffable grace, something feline that clearly contradicted its reptilian provenance, for it was without a doubt reptilian. The scales it bore gave the appearance of being finely painted on. Furiously brilliant light shone in the dragon's bright yellow eyes. The creature was most certainly gold, from the tips of its claws planted in the earth, up to the end of its long tail that moved slowly amongst the thistles, proliferating upon the height. The creature opened its big amber bat-like wings and remained still, looking at them with its huge golden eyes and demanding they admire it. In their hubris, the dragon hunters threw themselves into an unwinnable fight, and when the dust settled, Geralt approached the golden dragon, and the young hatchling his mate Murgtabrak had been protecting. And to Geralt he said, "It's necessary in this day and age. The creatures that you commonly call monsters have felt, for some time, more and more threatened by humans. They don't know how to defend themselves, and they need a protector, a witcher. If we heed the morals of our ancient legends, like that of St. George, we can see that the dragon is the embodiment of many fears and challenges we humans face. To slay your dragon is to overcome a great obstacle. In the Witcher world, it is lucrative to perpetuate such ideas. In reality, dragons are only a danger to those serfs whose sheep they devour. Dragons and the other kinds of Draconids may look similar, but they couldn't be more different. And there you have it, guys, the Draconids of the Witcher world. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to see more Witcher content, consider leaving a like and a comment. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I've been Drew, and I'll see you in the next one.